Shadows of the Past: How World War II Sparked the Idea That Created the F-117 Nighthawk. The F-117 Nighthawk did not begin in the 1970s. Its true origin stretches back to Europe in the 1940s, where radar beams first swept across blacked-out skies and changed the logic of warfare forever. During World War II, both the Allies and Axis powers discovered a frightening truth. Visibility was no longer defined by human eyes. It was measured in wavelengths. The conflict became the first global laboratory for electromagnetic warfare, and the seeds of stealth were quietly planted long before the world knew what the concept meant. As British radar stations tracked incoming Luftwaffe bombers, German scientists rushed to find ways to bend or blur those new electronic eyes. Their studies into angled surfaces, radar scattering materials, and electromagnetic absorption remained primitive, but the theoretical groundwork was real. Meanwhile, Allied engineers faced their own crisis. Bomber fleets, even the largest formations, were vulnerable to radar-directed interception. Notes from classified British labs referenced shaping and frequency interference as early as 1943. These were among the first embryonic ideas suggesting that aircraft geometry could influence detectability. When the war ended, the United States secretly collected thousands of pages of enemy research through Operation Paperclip. While the world thought America wanted rockets and jet engines, it also inherited something more subtle: decades of fragmented radar theory, equations scribbled by exhausted physicists, and conceptual sketches of low observable shapes made by engineers who never lived to see them tested. These materials were quietly archived, waiting for a moment in history when the United States needed them again. That moment came in Vietnam. The Air Force realized that radar-guided weapons had matured far beyond the World War II era. Surface-to-air missiles struck aircraft with terrifying accuracy. Recalling the old problem, the sky was ruled not by pilots, but by sensors, after suffering losses. Pentagon analysts revisited obscure documents from the 1940s and 1950s, rediscovering libraries of abandoned mathematical models. Among them was a set of equations written decades earlier by a Soviet engineer who had studied German radar physics. His formulas described how electromagnetic waves reacted when they struck rigid, fast surfaces. The equations were theoretical, incomplete, and impossible to compute in their own time. But now, with Cold War computers, they were suddenly plausible. This is where the lineage becomes undeniable. The Nighthawk's faceted body, the element that allowed it to vanish on radar, was not born in a modern lab. It was the resurrection of forgotten World War II mathematics filtered through Cold War necessity. Lockheed Skunk engineers realized that if they broke an aircraft into flat panels aligned at precise angles, they could scatter radar waves instead of returning them. The theory was crude. The shape would fly terribly, but it would be nearly invisible. Thus, the true beginning of the F-117 was not technological. It was conceptual. It was born from a war where radar changed everything. A war where nations learned that visibility itself could be weaponized. The Nighthawk would become the first aircraft designed not to fight radar, but to deny it a dream. Imagined in the 1940s, finally realized decades later. The ghost of World War II stood behind the blueprint, building the impossible. Inside the Skunk Works and the birth of a stealth culture, when the Pentagon quietly authorized Lockheed to attempt the world's first operational stealth aircraft, the challenge was staggering. The F-117 wouldn't just be a new airframe, it would require a complete reinvention of aerospace engineering itself. This mission fell to the Skunk Works, a place already mythologized for building the U-2 and SR-71 but never asked to defy aerodynamics so drastically. Their assignment bordered on absurd. Design an aircraft that radar could not see and pilots could still fly. Inside the Skunk Works compound in Burbank, California, culture became as important as technology. Engineers operated under a form of controlled paranoia inherited from Cold War intelligence programs. Teams were isolated from one another. Notes moved in, sealed envelopes, blueprints appeared and disappeared between shifts. Many workers never learned the full scope of the program until retirement. The secrecy was not only operational, it was psychological. It created a pressure cooker of creativity, fear, and discipline. The same atmosphere that had driven classified teams working on European radar projects during World War II The shape of the future Nighthawk emerged slowly and painfully. Early wind tunnel tests were brutal. The flat, angular prototype shook violently, stalled unpredictably, and produced turbulent airflow that behaved more like a collapsing tent than a flying machine. Aerodynamicists insisted the geometry could not sustain stable lift, but stealth mathematicians countered that no other shape would reflect radar safely. The clash echoed a similar conflict from World War II, aerodynamic practicality versus electromagnetic survival. Just as German jet designers once struggled to balance speed with control, Skunk Works now faced the challenge of equal contradiction. The prototype, called Half a Blue, was the first tangible proof that the insane could become real. It looked like a broken diamond, hovering awkwardly on landing gear that seemed too fragile for the mission ahead. Yet in classified tests, Half Blue slipped through radar nets with a signature smaller than a bird. The Air Force was stunned. For the first time in history, a plane had become a shadow. Skunk Works scientists then created a library of absorption materials derived from exotic World War II experiments with carbon-based coatings and ferrite mixtures. The new chemical formulas were more advanced, but the philosophy was the same: reduce the energy that radar could return. The engineers even studied captured German research from the last months of the war, analyzing unfinished coatings designed for submarine coating towers. As construction ramped up, secrecy protocols tightened. Workers were flown to the desert in unmarked aircraft. No one spoke about the project outside of secure rooms. Families assumed their loved ones worked on simple test equipment, never imagining they were designing the most classified aircraft since the Manhattan Project. The culture that emerged inside Skunk Works was a hybrid of World War II urgency and cold war precision, a tribe of engineers trying to create something the laws of physics insisted should not exist. And yet, slowly, the pieces came together. The airframe was assembled, the cockpit was installed. The alien-looking panels were coated in radar-absorbent material. The F-117 was beginning to emerge, reshaping aviation history from inside a warehouse no one was allowed to acknowledge. First nights in the desert, the secret flights that proved the Nighthawk was real. When the first operational F-117 prototype rolled into the Nevada night, it did not look like a warplane. It looked like a geometric sculpture, a relic from an unknown civilization. But its lineage reached back to World War II night fighting tactics when aircraft depended on darkness to survive. Now, darkness was merely the stage. Invisibility itself had become engine. The first clandestine flights occurred at Groom Lake, the same desolate basin where the U-2 and A-12 had taken their maiden journeys. Test pilots were briefed in sealed rooms. They were instructed never to look behind during takeoff, so they would not see the security convoys shadowing them. Engineers watched from reinforced bunkers, unsure whether the aircraft would fly smoothly or tear itself apart. The Nighthawk lifted slowly, uneasily, like a creature learning its own weight. The absence of aerodynamic curves made the aircraft vibrate under pressure. Every takeoff was a gamble between lift generation and catastrophic stall. But once airborne, the F-117 revealed its true purpose. Radar race, positioned around the valley, tracked the sky, and nothing appeared. The screens were blank, where an aircraft should have been. There was only static. Test pilots flew precise patterns, cutting across radar sweeps at different angles, something World War II bombers could only dream of, as they fled searchlights and flat cannons. The Air Force compared the Nighthawk's radar visibility to a small bird, then to an insect, and finally to statistical noise. The aircraft had become the first true ghost of the modern battlefield. Night after night, the flights continued. Engineers studied thermal signatures, comparing them to German infrared sensors recovered after World War II. They discovered that the Nighthawk's exhaust patterns behaved unlike any jet ever built, dispersing heat so efficiently that even night vision cameras struggled to lock onto it. This breakthrough linked directly to research begun when German and Allied forces experimented with infrared detection to track enemy bombers. Another round of tests evaluated the aircraft's behavior during low-altitude penetration, the same type of mission Allied bombers once performed over occupied Europe. The F-117 hugged mountain ridges with precision. Guided by onboard computers and algorithms descended from navigation systems created in the final months of World War II, where older aircraft relied on terrain familiarity, the Nighthawk relied on digital prediction. It flew not through the landscape, but through mathematics. One of the most significant secret trials involved simulated air defense networks based on Soviet radar systems whose ancestry traced back to World War II German designs. The F-117 cut through them like a whisper through a storm. There were no alarms, No lacons, no tracking signals, only silence. The engineers realized the profound implication. The Nighthawk didn't defeat air defenses. It simply never existed within them. By the end of the test campaign, the doctrine was clear. The F-117 was not a fighter. It was not a bomber. It was something older and newer at the same time, the final evolution of an idea that began when Allied crews first feared radar beams sweeping toward them in the night. The Nighthawk was the answer to a question the Second World War had asked but could never solve. How do you wage war without being seen? The hidden architects, the engineers who secretly shaped the F-117s. Impossible geometry while the world believed stealth began in the late Cold War. The core mathematics behind the F-117. Nighthawk was rooted in research that quietly stretched back to the closing years of World War II, when the Allies captured German laboratories in 1945. They uncovered thousands of pages of aerodynamic experiments that explored faceted radar wave diffusion and non-traditional lifting bodies. Most of these theories were considered impractical at the time, but decades later they resurfaced inside the quiet walls of Lockheed SE's Skunk works, placed in front of a small, hand-chosen group of engineers who would become the unseen architects of the Nighthawk. These engineers developed the airframe in complete seclusion. They worked in windowless rooms designed to mask any electromagnetic signature produced by their equipment. Many didn't know the names of the colleagues sitting just a few feet away. Identification was restricted to initials on technical binders. Every sketchy, every formula, every aerodynamic simulation was cataloged under coding names instead of descriptions. The aircraft they were building did not yet have a name, only a file designation: Senior Trend. Leading the invisible workforce were 4 engineers whose contributions reshaped modern aviation, though few outside classified circles ever learned their names. One specialized in radar wave scattering